Now, welcome to BizTech's Conversations. I'm Brian Fernandez, and our guest today is Federico Donato, President of the Euro Chamber Singapore. Welcome to the show, Federico.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And Federico, could you give us a quick overview of EuroCham Singapore and your role in engaging key stakeholders, especially individual country chambers of commerce?
Yes, I'm very happy to. EuroCham Singapore is an organization which represents the economic interests of a business coming from the European Union and from the EFTA country, namely Norway and Switzerland. Now, the governance of EuroCham constitutes of all the national business group from Europe. So all the Chamber of Commerces from European country present in Singapore sits in the board of directors of EuroCham Singapore. And together with all the chambers, we are also open to corporate membership. Therefore, the board comprises of a national chamber and some companies that are part of the board because they're being elected. So we try to be a hybrid, so a chamber that has both the national business groups and directly corporations who decide to be member. So the structure has clear advantages because without losing touch of our members that are all the corporations, so we have a few hundreds of corporate members that are members of EuroCham, we also have in our board all the national business group, therefore all the Chamber of Commerce from European country in Singapore, and therefore we can be fully aligned with the agenda of the several national countries that are present in Singapore, their embassies, and all their trade associations. So I think it's a very good system to make sure that we are aligned with the companies on one side and with the Chamber of Commerce on the other side. What is our unique role? Our unique role is to do advocacy towards Singaporean government. Therefore, the National Business Group bring their doubt, their question, and they seek help from us. And we are the one who go to Singapore government with a unified position from the European Union. So by putting together all the countries present in Singapore, we usually have a better position to address issues that therefore don't represent only one country, but can represent 27 countries combined, which in aggregate is the biggest investor in Singapore because the European Union is the biggest direct investor in Singapore.
So again, that singular voice then also then helps the Singapore government understand the needs of that, as you said, that largest bloc a lot better and respond to you better.
That's correct. That's correct. It's also a way of simplifying for the Singapore government to have one voice, which is usually representing the whole continent, and therefore it's simplifying for Singapore and it has critical mass for Europe. For example, the president of the European Chamber, in this case myself, sit in the board of a Singapore Business Federation, representing the issue of Europe and therefore being able to function as a conduit of the need from the European companies towards the Singapore government. So on one side is simplifying, on the other side has critical mass.
Now, Federico, this year, the European Chamber Eurochamber really, one of its key focus areas was about sustainability. And this afternoon, you just presented a white book to the Minister for Sustainability and Environment, Grace Fu. Now, talk us through this meeting and what this white book initiative is all about.
Well, in the beginning of the year 2020, in January, when we defined our activities for the year, we thought that sustainability should have a center stage. And that's because we were starting to hear more and more companies which were interested in the topic, more and more companies which were positioning into the topic and investing budget into this topic. So we thought that that could be a good anchor because on one side, the European Union and Europe has a clear leadership, and we will see later what I mean. And on the other side, because Singapore within Asia Pacific is definitely a country trying to make a difference on sustainability. So we thought in the beginning of the year that that could have been a theme unifying of the whole continent and very much high in the priority of the Singapore government. So why I think that Europe has a leadership? Because in Europe, the theme of sustainability, and not only for the good of the environment, but also as a means of making more money in a sustainable way, it was central in Europe in the agenda since decades. And the luxury that the European economies have is the following. We have clear leadership in the different aspects of the sustainability. What do I mean? You have countries extremely famous in treatment of waste management, in the treatment of plastic. Germany, Austria are very strong. You might know that, for example, textile is a big polluter, and in France and Italy, of course, there is a big textile industry, and there are companies, fashion companies, who are championing this argument for their single industry. You have the Nordic countries where eolic, the wind energy, and other form of energy, alternative energy, are very high in the priority. Or last but not least, for example, in the Netherlands, you have a lot of knowledge for the water treatment, especially related to the rising water problem related to global warming. This last, for example, is a very important theme in Singapore. Singapore, like many other countries in Southeast Asia, are suffering and are very concerned for the rising of the waters. And therefore, we do believe that from Europe, we could have showcased something that was important for Singapore. Therefore, we embarked in a very comprehensive exercise that was made of sharing session between the university community, our members company, to make sure that our conversation were conversation both backed by researchers, but also practitioners, to see that there are business solutions to philosophic problems. And then there was this chunk of session where the bulk of what formed the white book that I had the privilege to give 2 hours ago to Minister Fu. And thirdly, tomorrow, we will have our first sustainability award, which will be the third and most important component of the program on sustainability. Why we did this program? Since we launched the sustainability program, you could have noticed that the newly elected president of the EU 6 months ago, Ursula von der Leyen, launched the EU Green Deal as one of the top priorities of the European Union. And at the same time, a few months later, just a couple of months ago after the election, the Singapore government rebranded the Ministry of Environment into Ministry of Sustainability and Environment. So I'm happy enough to have been quite early moving on this. And we do believe that in a post-COVID world, sustainability will be even more important. The theme is very big, so we couldn't speak of the whole sustainability because it's just too vast. And so we narrowed down into 5 topics, which for us were paramount and more important for this year. The topic are green finance, nutrition, clean and efficient energy, circular economy. And therefore you see, we try to analyze different aspects of a sustainability problem into trying to focusing and focus our attention on selective different thematic.
So Federico, one of the key problems with sustainability and is the fact that in this part of the world, sustainability is not is something that businesses think will cost them money. Now, governments are starting to sign on to the fact that, hey, it's for the long term, this is how we need to manage. But perhaps one of the key things that the industries and companies need to manage, companies who are involved in this area, is the messaging that's associated with that. Essentially that, A, sustainability does not have to cost you money. In fact, it could be great for your bottom line because it helps you save costs and therefore increase your profitability. I mean, what sort of initiatives are you doing in terms of messaging to get that message out?
Yes, I believe it's true. Particularly in the past, we were attaching the concept of sustainability to something that cost me money. So companies were saying, yeah, that's great, but no matter how good I can feel about it, but it's still I cannot face this cost. The truth is that we have to analyze the problem in details. There are indeed part of the chain which needs subsidies, and therefore people can be intuitively less receptive because they say that's a clear cost for the society and for the company. On the other side, you have clear cost saving. Allow me to make you an example. We were talking this afternoon with the minister. One of the main topics for Singapore is to try to have more efficient, energy efficient buildings. Energy and the real estate industry, I think, has a cost in carbon emission for Singapore, which is roughly 1/5 of their total carbon emission. So if you are able to do and to build a building which is much more efficient, the truth is that you will be spending less money. So if your aircon bill is lower, you are saving money. So that's happened by insulating better. That happens with building with more so-called sustainable material, but also to apply technology, to apply domotic that allow you to have more control timing of your aircon or other part of your building. So there are, in essence, different phases of the same problem, but ultimately we are here to make sure that our partnership are there to sustain the economy in a way that we don't call to produce cost for the society. We are here to make sure that our partnership and the one we can foster between Europe and Singapore are in fact provoking and giving a cost saving for the companies involved. Allow me also to say the next generation of talent you want to hire, and that's being highlighted by many industry leaders, it's a generation of people, like a generation of investors that want to see that your company is making a sustainable business. So you might find yourself not able to raise money because of the policies you have. You might find yourself not able to secure a credit line because the bank cannot finance the industry in which you are in. And thirdly, you might not be able to secure talent because the young talent is asking what you're doing to make sure that you are building a sustainable business.
And Federico, that's a very interesting point on the talent issue, and we're going to come back to that. But I've got to ask you a dollars and cents question, because sustainability, yes, we all agree it's important. But today, the immediate concern for businesses, not only in Singapore, but around the world, is about survival because of the pandemic. Now, outline some of the challenges your members have faced and how they have coped with the changing situation.
Well, allow me to take a picture of what's happened. We somehow believe, or there is a certain narrative which equal COVID to a crisis and to a very bad economy, which is only partially true, because a lot of businesses are doing quite well. If you allow me to give you a number, the trade between the EU and Singapore is down only 4% compared to last year. So
wow,
that's quite interesting, very small. Of course, there was a free trade agreement between Singapore and Europe, which just started this year in 2020. Yeah. Of course, to be completely fair, the picture is rosier for Singapore because, if I'm not mistaken, Singapore export to the EU increased by 19% compared to last year, while the flow from the EU to Singapore decreased. But as a matter of fact, we're not talking about a number which is very bad. Today, when I was in the last few days, I was spending time with some of my members, and the picture is quite complex, because there are some people indeed doing very well and some people suffering a lot. I make you an example. I was talking to a chemical company just earlier today, and they are involved in both producing cosmetics, of producing technologies that are used both in cosmetic and nutrition. The nutrition business is up and the cosmetic business is down, just because we are all wearing masks and probably not much cosmetic can be sold. But the truth is, you have to look at both. The tech champions are probably experiencing the best time in their lives. The Amazon of this world are having the time of their lives. So the real picture is, we have to be extremely careful, because people on the ground from traditional industry might be suffering because of a lockdown. So we don't have to look simplistic by saying everything is looking okay, because indeed GDP is down, economies are suffering. But if you ask to me, you're asking about my members, you ask me about the companies that are here, then I see a picture that is more mixed, because some people are doing extremely well and some people are doing extremely bad. I have members who are airlines, and for sure I'm not expecting them to be doing great. They are suffering, they are retrenching, they are in a very, very big, bad situation. At the same time, we have other guys who are doing quite well. So I see a mixed picture, and I see a glass which is very, very empty for some people and probably half full for others.
Now, one issue that you've had to cope with this pandemic, and coming back to the question of talent, is there's been a backlash against foreign talent. Now, how have you engaged the Singapore government in this area, and perhaps got to a situation where you are messaging this better to the public at large?
Well, look, I think it's very human and normal that in a situation of emergency and crisis, you try to defend your core. So it's normal for every country. I expect the country to prioritize citizens, and I expect the country to put their citizens before everybody else, because ultimately the duty of a state is to protect the people, and the people who are native or the people who are citizens of the country. And it's a very human thing. And I think it's something that we should all defend and should all support. On the other side, I think that if I look for my business community, the European business community is in Singapore for 50 years. We, as a business community, employed thousands of people. The breakdown of the people we employ is largely employing Singaporean. Now, there have been companies that probably did not respect all the rules. There have been companies who are not fully compliant with all the prevalent regulation, and these companies need to be sanctioned. But what I'm saying is that the largest majority of the members I have of the European companies that are here are indeed playing by the rules. The majority of these companies are indeed employing a very big number of Singaporeans, are investing in the upbringing of the people, are investing in making sure that talent grows. Because at the end of the day, nobody wants to pay more to bring somebody from another part of the world. Nobody wants to be dependent from other places. So everybody, the people are also in Singapore because Singapore has good manpower. Otherwise, Singapore won't be successful. So what I think is, though it's natural, human, and normal that people should try to defend themselves, on the other side, I think that it would be paramount that Singapore take the highest pride on the result that has obtained. What do I mean? If Singapore today is playing the league of the most important global cities in the world, it's because Singapore was able to create an ecosystem which was great for companies to thrive. So if company A from France, from Italy, from Germany chose Singapore to make its base for Asia Pacific, is because Singapore was able to create the necessary arrangement and the necessary condition to make sure you thrive. And if you, as a country, are able to attract these companies, this company might bring somebody from home, but largely will employ locals. So these jobs are here because people chose Singapore. So Singapore should take pride of being in the top league, in the Champions League of the global cities of this world.
And I want to use that as the new Singapore Talent Tech.Pass as an example. Now, that was announced last Thursday by the Minister of Trade and Industry at your event. And that Singapore Tech Pass it alludes to something that really you just spoke about. It's only for a small number of people, very high value people, that essentially will have a multiplier effect by creating jobs in Singapore. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on that?
Well, first of all, I'm very happy that Minister Chan chosen the EuroChamp event to make this announcement. We work very deeply and very strongly with MTI. And of course, there is no government in this world which will create a visa to attract a handful number of people, no matter how wealthy, no matter how good, no matter how smart. The principle, I think, behind this is nobody, Minister Chan was saying quite clearly, no country, not the US, not China, not even the biggest country, not Europe, can pretend to have all the solution within. And especially a very small country. So the idea is to attract people in extremely successful industry, because as I said before, the clearly winner of COVID are the people in digital, the people in tech. So being as open as possible for this industry to the top talent, with the idea that the person getting that visa is not getting a job instead of somebody else, maybe already in Singapore. So not that job from abroad instead of a Singaporean, or instead of a PR, or instead of somebody here. That job is supposed to be brought here so that it has a volano effect, and ideally for every tech pass there are X jobs created. So you see, we don't have to stop on saying, on judging on an exclusivity is this versus that, but it's really, let's attract this to make sure that we have fostering a community which without this talent won't be possible. I think that's quite a common practice is universities globally. Global university attract people who eventually win Nobel Prizes from all over the world, and nobody really checks the nationality. Of course, what has to remain is that we have to create a volano effect, so we have to import the best people to make sure that we can propel our economy forward. I always use an example which is quite dear to me, together with what I was saying before. if we are, we are all soccer fan in Europe, and if you want to win the Champions League, at the end of the day, you want the best players.
Yep.
You want to have your Messi, your Ronaldo, your great talent to bring in your country and to make sure your team win. But by that team winning, also thanks to some of the foreigners, you will be fostering a local crowd of players, in our case of employees, which tomorrow will be the champions of the future. So I think that's the key message. Singapore must be the enabler of things to happen through talent from outside, but also fostering the talent inside. And that's why it's important that we can import the talent and then that we can reinvest on the local people from great universities, as we all already done for the past 50 years.
Now, moving on from talent, and obviously that's a critical factor in improving trade and improving business, to the announcement yesterday of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. Now, that's given free trade really a shot in the arm. What's your view on how the region and Singapore will be impacted by this?
Well, I think it's a very strong message from Asia, especially on the timing. I mean, I was very much involved in the launching of a free trade agreement between the EU and Singapore last year. Actually, it's now this month. We are celebrating exactly 1 year. And of course, Europe has been very much committed to open trade like Singapore did. So I believe that for the region is a great sign of being committed to trade. And it's not a given. If we look at the global situation now, we do have forces that has been and continue to be quite protectionist on one side. And we have on the other side countries that still believe that being open to trade is paramount. I think that if there are winners specifically, Singapore should be quite proud of this achievement, because as an economy who has particularly linked its fate and success to global trade, I think that Singapore government by now should be quite happy with what happened yesterday, because it's a reaffirmation that their choices of global trade and of their trade choices has been particularly successful. It says that if you look at how much of the global GDP is in the Pacific, such agreement will propel this economy forward. And I'm happy that we finalized this trade agreement with the EU just in time, because I believe we could even leverage from this new free trade agreement in the region now by being here and having our free trade agreement on the other side. So for all forces committed to trade, I think, as you defined, it's a shot in the arm, and it's a reaffirmation that the Singapore government is probably on the right side, especially if we look at Asia.
Now, are there specific areas that you think that European companies would be able to take advantage of RCEP?
Well, look, the beauty of the economic composition of a European GDP is variety. I mean, I would be having a hard time in singling down which industries, but if you look because if you look at the present of the European economies, is quite diverse. So we go from automotive to pharma to textile to fashion to machinery to components. So it's quite wide. So I believe that the fact that we are here, the fact that we are a big investor here, the fact that we are one of the major trading partners here is definitely something that we will be leveraging on. And the beauty for Singapore and for a company like ours, which largely chosen Singapore as the HQ for the whole Asia Pacific region, is that from here, if this is the conversation, if this is the direction, if trade remains a priority, then the fact of being here in an open country with my HQ to control the larger Asia Pacific region should only be putting me in the best position I can ask for.
Now, final question, what is your outlook for 2021? What are your members telling you?
Well, I think in the EU, there was this a recent report on ASEAN, and I think that majority of EU business leader, majority of European business leaders still see the ASEAN as one of the main or the area in the world that should be creating the most success, having the most success, especially in relative terms, in absolute terms for sure, and in relative terms, if you look at other areas, I think that it's definitely put in a very good position. South America probably will be suffering a lot from COVID a lot longer. APAC, I think, will be quite not insulated, but should be the one rebounding the strongest. everybody is sharing with me a strong result from China. Majority of people are up budget from last year already by now. So if I can give a short answer, I do believe that yes, we have to still see what will be the results of when this pandemic will be ending, if this vaccine is indeed happening, and by when exactly. So there are still few question marks open. I think it will be a bit bumpy for first quarter, maybe even first half, but I do believe that at least Asia Pacific seems to me quite resilient. China is driving the growth, but largely you have many Asian countries which manage the crisis quite well. I mean, Singapore managed it quite well. Countries like Vietnam, which has a great growth in the past few years, manage the COVID urgency quite well, and is another country that people are looking at. Some countries are having a little bit more issues, but I believe that largely in an area which is by large driven by China. Japan didn't do that very bad. So I do believe that in this area of the world, we could be in relative terms quite positive. Let's look and see how long the pandemic lasts into 2021.
Now, Federico, thank you very much for your time and giving your insights. We've been speaking to Federico Donato, President of EuroCham Singapore and Executive Director at Credit Suisse. On BizTech Conversations, I'm Brian Fernandez. Check out www.biztech.asia for business and technology conversations.
Thank you.